autodidact, really. My dad was a professor at Vanderbilt. I was steeped on physics and stuff from a young age. My mama said, Ange, we loved you, but we didn't know what you were talking about. I'm a spiritual girl, felt like God made me to be a UFO girl. I've been obsessed with this since I was a tiny little girl. I probably interviewed 2,500 people. It's all about my witnesses. I got Field Investigator of the Year award. I flew out to LA. I was telling everybody I hated LA. Oh my God, get me out of there. I needed a drink. But I said, it's not just about me. It's about my witnesses. And so as we go forward, I want everybody to feel comfortable. If you ever had a sighting, you want to share it. I don't betray who you are. I never betrayed anyone in 40 years. It's not about that. It's about to get the information. Today I'm excited. This is a case that's been ongoing for 3 years. It's an incredible case. It's one of my best lectures it's one of my favorite lectures. So we got an intimate group here. Cheryl said we're not in a hurry, so I'm not going to hurry through it. You know, we'll have questions if you want to at the end. You guys seem really open. I did a lecture down in Clayton, Georgia, and the atmosphere in our society is really changing, and I really like it. Look, you guys are here, so I don't think there's any non-believers, or at least open-minded people. This is where I'm very protective of people, and I'm very assertive. My father, he said, Andrew, back then, women, back when I was young, we were in a male-dominated science society, and he said, you're going to have to intellectually beat these men to death, to be accepted, so I had to be mean a little bit, I said, you're not going to be condescending to me just because I have a blonde head. And so things have changed now. And I remember at Clayton, Georgia, I had, people were kind of hesitant to come to me. Don't be hesitant to come to me. But I saw this little woman. She had 2 teenage sons and her husband, and she was trying to come up to me. And I said, honey, come over here. What do you got to tell me? They were snickering at her. And I said, guys, why are you snickering at your mama? Told the husband, why are you snickering at your wife? I said, she's got something to tell me. And I said, I want to ask you something. Has your wife ever lied to you? He goes, no, ma'am. He said, no, ma'am. I said, boys, has your mama ever done anything wrong or made up a story and lied to you? They said, no, ma'am. I said, then why do you think she would make up a story so you guys can make fun of her the rest of her life?
Amen.
Don't do that. That's not funny. I said, wonder if this thing she saw in the backyard was dangerous and you ignored her. That's not good. So I tell people, keep an open mind, at least be scientific. Don't make fun of people, and I don't think anybody is here, going to make fun of people, but be curious about stuff. So I want you guys to think about, I like this slide, just think about it. 200 plus billion stars in our Milky Way galaxy. 200 billion plus. Right now, NASA's up to 11 billion or so exoplanets that could exist in our solar system. And we live in a limitless universe, unlimited galaxies. Look at the Hubble, look at all, it goes forever. So I don't think you guys have to be convinced, but that's a pretty big universe that we've got going on. So I love this case. This case is the strange case of Witness J. This case has everything. It reads like the X-Files. That's why I wanted to bring it to you. It's still an ongoing case. My witness he's so brave. He started to come forward and do some radio shows with me and actually come out, and he couldn't come today. But maybe I can come back and he'll come with me, and because he really likes to talk to people now. He sees that people are very, welcoming and accepting as to what happened to him. So this case is important, and I walk around a lot. This case, I want everybody to pay attention to the location. In my research over 45 years, I collect common denominators. That means patterns that show up over and over and over again in cases. I laugh. You can't even make this stuff up. I remember when the abduction situation, that's kind of mellowed off over the last 10 or 12 years. But 20 years ago, I had a ton of abduction cases. And I remember some of my psychologist friends going, oh, these are just common delusions. People are making this up because they're highly imaginal. I'll never forget, 30 years ago, I probably had this little seamstress from a little town like yours. She contacted me, wanted me to tell her story. She was 16. This thing came into her room, and I interrupted her. I wouldn't even let her. I was going to try to lead her, and get her to, see if I could lead her to something else. I said, I know all about those aliens. They're tall and have black hair, right? And she goes, no, they're short, have these big eyes, and they're bald. So I couldn't even lead people, you know what I mean? I couldn't get them to change their mind. So I just, it's ridiculous. People, I learned, I'm an old cardiac nurse. I know what schizophrenia looks like. I know what emotional issues look like. My witnesses that I talk to, they don't have that. And I want to stress one more thing. I tell people our judicial system is based on credible witness testimony. I can put you in jail. You could be put in prison when you have a group of your peers that listen to testimony. They have credible testimony. And yet we have credible testimony coming in for 40 years with people that are just like you, everyday housewives, doctors, lawyers, people that don't want to make up a story, and that's been coming in forever. And this family is one of those families. I want you to look, first of all, this is an affluent family. This happened up in the Millersville area. They have no reason to make this story up. Matter of fact, they were worried about it getting out for a while. And what's interesting, this family has a military background. The actual witness that this happened to, he was an E4P team leader and a mobile switching operator. He was a communication specialist. He had a secret security clearance for 4 years. His mother, I love this woman, she's adopted me. She's 74 years old and carries her 45 with her everywhere she goes. She had a security clearance with the Department of Defense. She was in the Naval Air Warfare Center. She did training system. And like I said, she's in her 70s, and she actually carried a 38. Now she has a 45. She's moved up in the world a little bit. And I love her. This woman could not be corrupted. She didn't believe in any of this stuff. And as you see, as this case unfolds, it's like one of those that you wait for a whole lifetime. She couldn't be coerced. She didn't believe in UFOs or paranormal stuff. Very devout Christian woman, honest. So anyway, I want you to start to look at the area. What happened, the father was in the military, also had a secret clearance, and he passed away. The son lived out of state. Mama was up here alone. And the farm had about 200 acres. They're down to about 50 now. But of course, Mama was upset, and the son said, "Listen, Mom, you know what? I'm not happy down here in Florida. I'm just going to resign my job. I'm going to come up there and stay with you, and I'm going to start going through and helping you close the farm out and going to do inventory." His dad had a lot of tools, that kind of thing. So I want you to just see how wonderful these people are, just like you guys. Before I came out, he mowed everything, made trails down in the woods because I brought my team, and we have heavy equipment. We brought all of our four-wheelers. We want to have, this should be fun. I try to get people into this. Join a team. We go out and we actually have a blast, with what we're doing. I have a wonderful professional team, and, there should be a sense of adventure and curiosity. So I want you to see how hard they worked. You guys are out here. He mowed all this stuff so we could, get back in there and do our research. Now, this is really important. The story starts here. I want you to see this is where the incident started to happen. This was the outbuilding, okay, the infamous outbuilding. And over here, you'll see the house is about over here. It's about 80 feet. That's important. And you can't see here, but you see the little side door here? And then in the front, it's the big double garage doors, that pull up. And in here, they've got, tractors and, all of the gear in here. So what happened, it was probably early April 2015, if my memory is serving me correctly. It was still cool. So he has a jacket on, that's important. And the son, witness Jay, he's out and he's taking inventory of all the tools. He said, my dad had all these work tools, and he's organizing things because they want to do an auction. And as he's going through, he finds a little nest of baby birds. I love how these things work. And he goes, I scared the mama off. And he goes, everyone thinks I'm this gruff old military guy. He said I couldn't let them die. He was feeding these baby birds with needle nose pliers. Can you imagine that now? And so he took his phone out and he took a video of these little baby birds, because him and his mama in the morning would sit and have coffee, and he goes, I'm just going to show her that. She could walk out there, but it's something they could do. So he takes his phone out. Okay, this is the first thing that happened, and he takes a video of the baby birds. And like a lot of you guys, he's got his little pouch here, and he thinks he turns his phone off and he sticks it back in his pouch. So this is where I want you guys to pay attention. All these details are really important as an investigator, okay? So that's why I'm pointing them out, okay? I want you to look. Now, here's the building, the side door, okay? See how far we are. And here's the basement area of the house. And the eave and the driveway right there is important. So anyway, he goes, Ange, I took my video, and he goes, I put my phone back in my pocket,
And he goes, Ange, I got the weirdest feeling. He said, I don't know if I ever had this feeling, heard this 1,000 times. He goes, I just had this compulsion to go outside. About 11:10 or 11:15. We'll go through the timeline later. I've got a slide for it because it's really important. So he walks over, I don't want to trip, he walks over toward that door, takes his phone out. He goes, I don't know why, I always have my phone and my gun. He's a, military guy. Takes his gun off, sets it on the table, takes his phone out, sets it upside down on the table. Unbeknownst to him, thank God, the phone was still running. The video was still on, okay? And he goes, I had this compulsion to open the side door of the barn here, so he opens the side door. And when he opens the side door, he sees a bright flash of light, and the next thing he knows, he's laying flat on his back here. Okay, and we're going to talk about missing time. Does everybody know what missing time is, the concept of that? It's just a time period that people, I have a lot of people that I as a nurse, I got trained in hypnosis because I had so many people that had fragmented memories, and I wasn't trustful of what I was finding in the world out there, so I just trained and worked with people myself because I'm protective of people. So anyway, he wakes up on his back, and he has no idea what's happening or how much time has elapsed. Okay, we'll get to that. And he's looking up, we recreated this, and he's looking up at the eave of the house, and he goes, Ange, I was really confused. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what was going on. And what's really strange, little details that you don't know. Do you see how he's holding his keys? You know how you guys have your keys on those big rings? Well, it was open. And some keys were in this hand and some keys were in this hand. We don't know why. And it's like, how did that happen? So he said, I laid there for a while, and he said these weirdest thoughts were going through my head. At first, I was just like, it was like something was saying, it's okay, just chill out, everything's okay, And so he goes, I was just laying there on the ground, and then, my sentience, my cognition started to kick in, and he goes, what am I doing? I was back in the barn. How am I laying on the ground? And so he went to get up, and his jacket was pulled down like this, almost like it had been used to restrain him. So he said, I had to get up, try to get my jacket, repositioned, and, go inside. So he goes inside, and I'm dramatic. I just like this picture. His mom's, of course, older than this. But when he goes inside, his mom made him a bedroom like in the spare bonus room over the garage. So, his was up here and her room's downstairs because she's older and she didn't want to have steps. But when he walks into the bedroom, his mom is propped up, kind of up halfway, and her eyes are kind of like half open, but she's out of it. And this is really important. They have a big pit bull, and this pit bull is like champagne colored, and she'd lick you to death, okay? And the pit bull sleeps with Mama, and the pit bull was awake. And as we go along, remember the dog was present, because that's another piece of the puzzle that's really interesting. So he finally rouses his mom, and he gets her to wake up a little bit, and he goes, Mom, what time is it? And she's kind of weird and confused, and she said, well, son, she looks over at the clock, she goes, it's like 3:15. He freaks out. He goes, Ange, I'm never disrespectful to my mama. It's the South. I actually threw my keys not at her, but at the wall. He was so, you guys, you're protective. You feel invaded. Men want to protect things. And he said, I felt totally out of control. It's like, how could I have 3 hours? The last time he remembered is around 11, and now it's like 3:15. He's freaking out completely. Thank God for Mom. Mom's not freaking out. Mom's, trained to be calm. Well, Mom thinks, even though they're in a really nice area and they're kind of way off the road, she thinks, well, maybe he's been mugged. So she has her son take his shirt off, and she gets her phone and she starts taking pictures, because she's going to call the sheriff's department and document. We never get, evidence like this so, quick. And he had all these burn marks behind his ears. It was burned all the way down from his scalp. He had this weird dotted pattern that all faded in the top of his head, like something burned in the top of his head. And then he had restraint marks. They were pretty evident on his body, And so she's saying, oh, my God, did somebody mug him and then restrain him? What? And she said, let me call the sheriff's department. And Jay is just he is so out of it. He goes, no, I don't want you to call the sheriff's department, you know. He goes, Ange, at this point, he goes, I had 2 beers. I know I wasn't drunk. He goes, I didn't pass out. I don't do drugs. We all my team made sure of all that. Then he had puncture wounds on his body that he had no idea how he got those kind of wounds. And so, you know, it's just not a happy time right now. She's freaked out now, and he's freaked out. And so I want to recap the timeline. This is important. That afternoon, he started working about 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the barn. Okay, it's early April, still cool, so you know the sun goes down early. He takes the video of the baby bird sometime in the early evening. He opens the side door of the shop about 11:45 to 12 p.m. He wakes up in the driveway between 3 and 3:15 a.m. He wakes Mom up about 3:20 because he kind of estimates he laid there in the thing. And then, after they got settled down, Mom goes, well, where's your sidearm? Where's your phone? I love military. My granddaddy was a colonel in the Army, so it's familiar to me. He goes, well, it must be still out in the barn. Well, Mom goes, I'll get my gun and cover you. So Mom's in her little pink bathrobe. I just love this woman. She's awesome. I love Southern women. She gets her little pink bathrobe with her 45, and she goes out to cover her son. He goes back out to the barn, and nothing's going on. You know, he gets his gun. He gets his phone. The phone's dead. It's drained. This is interesting. So we had approximately 3 hours of missing time so that we can document. One thing Mom added me, when she heard this lecture, she said, I want you to add something in the lecture. I said, sure. This is why it's an ongoing case. Sometimes people remember things after the fact. She said, Ange, it was really weird. There wasn't a lot of foliage. It was still, spring, and everything hadn't budded out correctly. But she said there hadn't been a storm or anything, and there was a lot of, you saw where the driveway was between the things. She said there was a lot of like foliage and leaves and things that had dropped on the ground. And she goes, this woman is meticulous, okay? She blows all that stuff off, and she goes, I don't know how that got there. And she said, I don't know what this means, but there were all these birds in the trees everywhere just squawking like really, really loud. And she goes, maybe we're just being paranoid, but I want you to tell people that. We're going to put all the facts in there. And I said, you know what, whatever you want me to put in there. So that was a little bit, freaky to him. So the next thing that happened, I want to come out now and talk to you about what I found in my research 45 years. This isn't what I read in a book. This is talking to people like you. That in 98% of my ongoing cases, where people have a UFO experience or sighting or something, and they continue to have these over a period of time, paranormal components break out all the time. My definition, everybody listen, is not a ghost. A paranormal component is just some kind of thing that happens that we don't understand with our science, okay? And I just don't have a better term, to use for it. So he falls right in line with so many of my other witnesses. Excuse my language, hell starts to break loose. They start to have all these other things that start to happen to them. And since they're a well-to-do family, they're so freaked out, they buy a high-end security system to go in the house with all these low-light IR cameras, which y'all are going to get a treat. It's awesome. So, because they're really scared. Witness J, this is not a happy time. I tell people go, oh, they just want attention. These people don't get money. They don't want attention. And I guarantee you they don't want this happening. He said, Ange, maybe I have a brain tumor. I said, honey, and the evidence you're going to see, a brain tumor couldn't produce that. Deb Jordan, my friend that was the subject of Bud Hopkins' book, Intruders, her classic line when they took her to the doctor, she goes, it's okay if you tell me I'm crazy because they have a pill for that. That's that. People don't want this to be true. He got paranoid. He carried his gun with him. He scared the heck out of some of the women on my team because he wouldn't put that gun down. He played with it constantly. He's really freaked out over the intrusions into their lives. So they started to have all these paranormal events. And since he is recovered, what I call recovered, he worked through his fear, which I love him. It kind of these things transform you, which I think is part of the whole deal around the thing. He worked through it. I was really proud of him. I told him one day, I said, just quit thinking about this. Go fishing today. And so he started building a garden and getting outside. It really helped him. I said, don't think about this stuff constantly. But since he was a great scientist and we worked together as a team, he was able to capture some really cool things. So the first thing, and this isn't, I don't think you can see this really good on here, but you can see his face over here. I mean, it's pretty clear, and I don't think that's pareidolia, where you make up patterns and things. I look at stuff like that. And so both of them started to get really sensitive, and they'd have a feeling about something, and they go, I'm just going to go in this room and take a picture, and sure enough, something would come out. That's very common. We don't know why, but it's really very common.
That's an outside camera?
That was inside, internal security. That was in a bedroom, in one of the back bedrooms. Now this started happening. So his thing started out with missing time. A lot of mine start out with just a UFO sighting. Well, guess what shows up? I love this. Great video. That's not something you see every day. And he bought a really expensive camera, where he could put a telephoto lens on that and a movie camera and video. That's pretty cool. That was hovering over their house. That's why I love this case. This case we have actual footage and evidence in this case. And he goes, Ange, my mom and I, we were just sitting outside, and I decided to bring my camera out, and here comes this thing, and it just, look how long that is. Look at the shape of that thing. And it kind of reminds me of your little thing that you described, the dumbbell kind of thing over there. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And I just wanted you guys to see what a great image that was.
I've seen something like that here in Lynchburg.
Have you really?
In our back pasture, and I've seen it for years and thought, but it can't be a helicopter. There's no plane that's going to sit there like that. But it was so bright. It was almost like a spotlight. And I thought, who is that? There's nothing over there. It's just hills and hollers. And I thought, why would there be a helicopter? Why would there be this or that? Nothing, but you see it periodically. And then every time I go in and tell my husband, you need to come out here and look at this. And it's been there forever. I've been sitting out here looking at it. It's not ever there. And I'm like, well, I guess it flew off, not thinking it's some,
Okay.
strange.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm going to share something else with you guys, because I love these intimate groups. I can take my time and flow around. But when I was a young investigator, probably 25 or 26, I had a case. It was on a beach, about 14 or 15 people, and it was 10:30 at night. They were having a beach party. And at about, 10:45 at night, they were within our group. See how close we are? If all of us looked over there, we'd have the same perspective. That's my point. They were close enough to have the same perspective off this beach. And 4 of the people, only 4 out of 14, started seeing this UFO out over the water. It was probably 2 football fields out, probably about 300 feet up or so. And I separated them, and they all described the very same thing, the same light pattern, the same shape, the same colors. And guess what? The other 10 people couldn't see it. Some of my psychiatrist friends, they said, oh, that's a common delusion. I said, well, that is not a common delusion. People don't make up the same delusion. That's ridiculous. And so my research, I'm convinced now that there are some of us, people think evolution didn't stop, that really can perceive a greater degree of the electromagnetic spectrum, this isn't woo-woo, than other people. And my research has held for 45 years on that, and we can talk about that a little bit later. So guess what? I started collecting witnesses. I started studying my witnesses. I was young and poor and couldn't have fancy equipment, but I could study my witnesses. And they kept, these patterns kept showing up. And either a lot of my people were sensitive from birth, meaning they had this stuff following them around forever, or they had a defining moment like this, and all of a sudden, they're aware of a lot of other things that I think have always been there, but they just started being aware. So pay attention. So this is one of my favorite videos. And I want to tell you, I kind of do this lecture a little bit different. So remember when he went out and he retrieved his phone. Well, it was dead. Well, he plugged it in. He said, Ange, I had farm work to do, so I didn't think about it. All day went and did farm work, plowing, or not plowing, but bush hogging and stuff. And he came in that night and he went up to get his phone. Well, guess what? When he started listening to the phone, he remembered the little baby birds. Well, after he turned it on. This is what's really cool. That phone was still running, and it ran for 2 hours and 20 minutes before it ran off. And I brought a sample of some of the scariest audio you've ever heard. As far as multiple voices, you can hear him struggling. It took me an hour to pull this out of this audio for you guys, but there's a definitive non-human voice in there, and that's some of the best evidence we've ever had. There's no way that he made this up. And when I interviewed him the first time and we listened to this audio together, any of you medical people in here that have dealt with trauma, post-traumatic stress, soldiers, when they hear like a firecracker go off, they go into that response. Well, as soon as we started listening to the audio together, he went into a full-fledged post-traumatic display.
his pupils dilated, his neck, he started perspiring and shaking. Can't make that up. So whatever happened to him, something happened to him. So this video again was from one of the our cameras in the house, and he is not actually seeing this with his eyes. And I said, Jay, what prompted you to come down here? Notice what's in his hand, guys. He goes, Ange, there was something in there. I just knew there was. And I'm dramatic. I added music. So, guys, it's going to run just a little bit, but just pay attention. And you notice he's standing there. Bessie doesn't leave him. That's my name for it. And soon, I want you to start to look. It's going to come up in here. These orbs started flying through his house, and these are not dust motes. The one that I want you to watch is self-illuminating. It's actually emitting light, goes across the room and passes out the other wall. You have one coming through. That's not it. There's a bigger one coming. Here it comes. Now I want you to look at it pulsing. That's pretty spectacular. It goes all across the whole room and goes out the wall or the window over there on the other side. That's pretty phenomenal right there. We don't really know what that phenomena is. And again, he had some kind of sense that something was going on. And I said, why did you go down there? He goes, I don't know. I just felt like I needed to go down there. Something was going to go on. And so I just love this case. Again, there's so much. So anyway, our team, I finally, sometimes you like buyer's remorse. There's also witness remorse. People will make a report and then they'll go, oh God, I wish I hadn't done that. They feel vulnerable. And so I'm always a little shaky when I go to, call someone or get in touch with them. Please just don't bolt. Please just give me a chance. Let me talk to you and, kind of throw an anchor out to you. So I called him and called back. Called again, sent an email, didn't call back. Finally, we did, of course, we got together. After about 30 days, paranoia set in D, which happens a lot to people, and he called me and wanted all the evidence back. Everything. Every picture, every flash drive. I took it back to him. I'm not going to do that to him. But, he was able to work through his fear and terror, and we got through it. But before that, my team, this was such a great case. These are 1 in 100 maybe, that we get to deploy. And that means we're the team, we have our star team, and all that means is just, we're trained to get out there in the field and go as soon as we can, And it's a big deal, it takes 24 hours to, get all of our equipment out and charge up. We got FLIR cameras and then field, meters, and Don brings a big honking pickup truck, and we load all the four-wheelers in there, and we take that out because we were going to get to explore on the property. So I called the team together, we got everybody together, loaded everything up, and we went out on like a Friday morning. And probably takes about an hour to do all of our paperwork. Everybody has to sign that it's okay to, we're on their property, and we make an agreement what they want to be, public or not public. So we brought all the heavy equipment in, and man, did we get more, already we've got a lot of evidence, but we got more evidence of things coming in. Okay, I'll tell you guys a little secret. We don't like to give away our secrets a whole lot, but because, it's not that we're trying to trick people, but these are markers that, you're a small group that we use. So what we found as investigators, and I'll tell you something, I'm going to share a little bit more after this lecture. I like creative people. I have a diverse team. I never have people that are just like me, and they go, Ange, how do you get? I said, I have a great team because what I miss, you'll catch. You know what I mean? When you have a different team, I even have some really talented psychics that I take, and these people will rock your world. They're very credible people. And if there's high paranormal components, I take them with me. You go do yours, my Air Force guy does his, we all get along, so we go out. So this is just a little cheap black light, flashlight, you've seen those. People use them to find pets or pet stains or scorpion abduction things, if we can get there within 48 hours, if it happened to you, let's say, and I can give me permission to get your shirt off, people will fluoresce. There will be marks on their bodies that will actually fluoresce in patterns, and they eventually fade after about 48 hours, 3 or 4 days. So we always bring our black lights, and someone just caught that by accident. That's why I said we need creative investigators to think out of the box. So what we found on this door, human regular fingerprints don't fluoresce. And there was these seemed like fingerprints on Mama's door that were kind of unusual. We went over this house everywhere, looking for things. The next thing that was interesting is out in the barn, we use what I call, it's a trifill meter. It's a ramped up version. This one's a little bit different because it covers what we're trying to do. When I talk about the electromagnetic spectrum, it's like radio stations, just like the cell phones have different, Verizon uses this bandwidth and AT&T uses this band. Well, every piece of equipment we have, I have chosen it so it is going to measure as much of that electromagnetic spectrum as we can find to just see if we find any anomalies. Well, my millimeter here, we're measuring in milligauss. People call this a ghost detector. People, this is not a ghost detector. All this measures are fluctuations in the magnetic field, okay, that is natural on our Earth. What we do find while we use this is the magnetic field on the Earth fluctuates all the time. It'll go up 0.7, 0.3, 0.1. It's like a heartbeat. It moves. But when I go to an area and this thing locks in and it's 7.9, 7.2, 1.4, 1.3, and it stays there for 40 minutes, that's a high magnetic field that's stable. That can affect you. That's what we look for because those are just indicators that help us, really zoom in onto an area. And out in that barn, guess what? We had a stable reading out there, 7.7. Not real high, but pretty high.
Is that in hertz or?
It is in milligausses on this piece of instrument. Now I'll show you, we have different instrumentation that measures, again, in different bandwidths and different frequencies across that, okay? And that's why I've chosen those pieces of equipment. So the reason this is important, and you guys should check your homes even, like old homes that the wiring is bad, if you have faulty wiring, it creates a huge magnetic field that you're living in. It can affect your brain. You can have hallucinations. It can cause headaches, nausea, all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, so we always rule that out. If a family, I had one family that was living in a home like that, and they started being sick, and it wasn't aliens. It was because their environment was contaminated. So we started getting readings there. Now this was interesting. I love this little thing, and if you guys are not bored when I get through, I'll tell you one more story about this piece of equipment that you asked. This little guy right here is my bug detector, and it's a bug detector, okay? It measures in centihertz across 3 bandwidths for Verizon, AT&T, and all the cellular frequencies, okay, that we all have on our phones. So if your home is bugged, unless it's just the CIA or something, you know what I mean, and they've got stuff we probably can't track, but we can go in and sweep your home, and this little guy will go off because it's emitting a cellular signal. So we don't usually use this on human tissue. And if you guys want me to, that's why I want to tell you a little story later on. I'm going to be lecturing on this other case in Knoxville too. So we sweep inside with this bug detector. And guess what? In Witness Jay's room, it went off full tilt. This is an actual picture because we're documenting as we go. It went off full tilt on the outside wall. There's no wiring there, you know what I mean? It wasn't a magnetic field, at least from the wiring. So that was weird. So we documented it. We don't know why. He said, he was so paranoid at one point I thought he was going to tear that wall out. He said, is there a listening device in there? What's going on? But it did go off. So now I'm up to the point where I'm going to let you guys listen to this. This is the audio. I pulled out, this audio is actually 2 hours and 20 minutes long. I've been listening to it for 3.5 years. Since Dale's a musician and he knows all the studio people, we've actually taken it into the engineers and we played with it. We pulled some of the frequencies out, put them back. We don't know what we're disturbing, you know what I'm saying? So we've kept all original copies and then, played with some of this is an original copy that you're going to hear. I pulled out and I'm an old dinosaur, but I figured out how to fragment the video and just get the good choices so you didn't have to listen to 2 hours and 20 minutes. It took me like 6 hours one night. And I thought, but it was worth it because I could pull it out for you guys. And in here, I think you'll be able to hear pretty good. This thing is really disturbing. I've done 2 or 3 radio shows where they actually, the studio engineers played with the frequency so we could boost it a little bit for the audience. People had really strange reactions to it, nothing bad. You know, some people got sleepy, you know, some people got a headache a little, but we haven't documented anything harmful. And I want you to pay attention, okay? In this, it's really interesting, you hear this. Sounds like a metronome. I thought it was an artifact of the cell phone. We did everything we could to recreate it. I took the cell phone, turned it upside down, turned the video on, you know, we did like 20 of them. Couldn't recreate that artifact. So we don't know what that is. That's something. There's a modulation in frequency in the longer video. You guys can call me if you ever want to hear it. We're going to post parts of it up on the site at times, you know, when people get interested. But there's these strange modulations, meaning you'll hear this, and then it'll go, and it's like, it's almost like the pressure changes, or, you know, the sound, and almost like some kind of technology, altered state. We don't know what words to use. Actually impinges on the reality in there. You can hear all these changes. It's really incredible. So I want you guys to listen really careful. He had the radio playing at first. I want y'all to hear that. We can play it again too. Okay. No, turn it up. Hear him? Hear. Did you hear that? Play it again. I've listened to it like for 3 years, so it's easier for me. We have no idea what that is. And again, this was 2 hours and 20 minutes long. So, you know, again, all of us have listened with headphones. I would just sit in my office and put my headphones on and just listen. You hear him struggling, you hear him cursing, you hear him fighting, you hear some feminine voices at one point. We don't know what that is. They're out there on 50 acres alone. The driveway's like a quarter of a mile from the road. And then you hear this definitively doesn't sound like a normal voice come on there. I mean, we were shocked. I mean, this really upset that family. You know, this wasn't fun. You know, they had no idea what this was. So.
At the end of the video, does the radio resume?
No, the radio, and he doesn't remember. It's a good question. You know, he was just in there working, guys, you know, had his radio going, and at some point probably in the regular audio, at about 20-something minutes, the music just stops. And he doesn't remember turning that off or what happened, you know, why that stopped, but it just stopped. And then, again, some of those noises are normal noises. We had boosted the gain on that, you know, but you can definitively, we've all studied it for so long, we've actually got timestamps now that you can listen at 3.7, you know, and 10.9, you know, you can hear him vomiting, or it sounds like he's getting sick, and I don't know, there's some other stuff going on. So, and everybody's heard about unmarked helicopters, right? Guys, I'm not a paranoid girl. I don't make stuff up. I want to believe stuff, but I'm a show me girl. You know what's going on. So our investigation was on a Friday. We got there about 10 o'clock. We didn't leave till about, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. Everybody was tired. And I tell my witnesses, I said, you know, this is a lot. This really brings up a lot. I said, I want you and Mom to go out to dinner. I want you to think about this. You know, I want you to relax. And I always call my witnesses back. I ask permission. Can I call you back in about 48 hours and just check on you? Everybody get some rest and calm down. I was Friday. So Sunday evening, I called him and I said, hey, how are you? He goes, Ange, I feel so much better since you came. That day we actually got on the four-wheelers, had a beer, and had some fun. You know, I just wanted him to smile a little bit. You know, he took me down on the farm. We went down to the river, and I actually got everybody to have a little fun and lighten up. So anyway, I said, how were you over the 2 days? Did anything else happen? He goes, well, you know, it's really weird that you asked me. He said, I've had like 30 black helicopters fly over the property over the weekend. I said, really? I said, are you sure? He goes, yeah. I said, well, could you see what they were from? He goes, no. He said, we'd go out there, they're unmarked. And guys, I kid you not, you cannot make this up. I live in Brentwood. It's a no-fly zone. Planes don't even fly over our neighborhood. And over that weekend, I had over 30 black unmarked helicopters fly over my house. I looked like an idiot. I had a clipboard and have you ever tried to run outside as fast as you can, because there was no rhyme or reason, you know, or schedule, and get your phone or get a camera and try to take a picture of a helicopter that's flying over pretty fast. You can do it, but and then I couldn't see. I tried to, you know, make it larger. Then I got my binoculars. Oh my God, it's even harder to catch them in binoculars going over. My grandson's a pilot, you know, my co-investigators, we called every airport, you know, because I thought, well, these people have got to have a flight plan. I did every piece of investigative work that I could to try to find where these stupid helicopters were coming from. You think we could find it? Weren't marked, and they weren't Hueys, or, you know what I mean, they weren't loaded down with artillery or gun rails or anything, but that was the closest that I could get to a picture for you guys.
I bet if you got a laser pointer out, they'd get in contact with you real quick.
Well, you know, actually my witness one day, he was out on his tractor, bless his heart, and one of these guys came down low and actually just hovered over him like intimidating, and you know, he's a warrior guy, you know, he kind of said, come on baby, you know, and he said, maybe I shouldn't have done that, you know what I mean, because he said the guy was kind of acting like a little bit intimidating, and I think, why would you do that? I mean, like, some of this stuff is just, I don't know, it's just.
On the copter, was the tail like that, or was it different?
You know what? To the best of my memory, you know what I'm saying? And again, I'm not a helicopter girl, okay? To the best of my memory, this was you know, when I was searching, you know, it takes time. I searched through a bunch of pictures. This was the closest that I could come, because I wanted you guys to see that it wasn't decked out like a military, you know what I mean? It didn't have all the the gun rails or whatever they are on it.
Well, we get them down our way. We've had them from time to time, and they're not marked. They have pods underneath them, and the tail is different. It has 3 vertical stabilizers on it, and then there's a camera there, and well, I'm sure it's now our sensor too, but there's a camera pod. But we've gotten them. It's been about, I don't know, I'm gonna say 2-3 years now. But they come down. We live in the southern part of the county, out in the middle of nowhere, down on the river, and we've had them down there. But I just figured they're black. They're not marked. Yeah. But they got pods. And
that's interesting.
They're not on 30 of them. There might be 2 or 3.
Right.
But I just figured they looked for dope. But I don't know. It's unusual.
Well, and again, you know, if 1 or 2 flew over my house, I wouldn't bring it up. But for 30 of them, and guys, you know, I laugh when I was a young investigator. I'm a little bodacious. So I had, you know, I made friends with all the geek guys over at Vanderbilt that, you know, they have no social skills, but they can triangulate in their head. You know, these guys are brilliant. And they can hack anything back then. And so one of my guys called me, this has been 20 years ago, and he said, guess what, we're on DEFCON 3 or whatever, I can't remember the number. So back then we didn't have cell phones, we actually had directory assistance. Remember you could call that? And I called the operator and I said, I want the number for Cheyenne Mountain. So she gave it to me. So I called Cheyenne Mountain, and this little staff sergeant there, he goes, this is Staff Sergeant, blah, blah, blah. And I said, hey, I'm Angelia, and I'm a citizen. I want to know if we're on DEFCON 3. And he goes, how'd you get this number? And I said, I got it from directory assistance. He goes, no, you didn't. I said, sir, I'm not a liar. If I told you I got it from directory assistance, I did. And I don't appreciate you calling me a liar. And he goes, well, how'd you get this number? I said, I told you how I got the number. And I said, I want to know if we're on DEFCON 3 or whatever. And he goes, well, I can't give you that information. You'll have to call the help desk. Well, guess what, guys? I called that same number the next day. It was disconnected. And of course, the help desk won't tell you anything. And do you know, for 3 months, my phones were tapped. And my mail got cut open, you know, taped back together. And it got to be a joke. You know how you can go into a room, you're all sensitive, and I could tell if you're mad. You know what I mean? You can feel that. You can tell if somebody's upset. You can feel it on the phone sometimes. You know what I'm saying? So when my phone was tapped, I go, you could tell somebody, click. You know, I say, hey boys, how are y'all this morning? Got your coffee yet? I want a job. You could almost hear them laughing. You know, I didn't know enough for them to do anything to me. They were just saying, but if this isn't true, why are they tapping my phones? You know what I mean? Why are they opening my mail a long time ago? So anyway, this witness did have fragmented memories. You know, he could remember opening the door and there was some bright light and that kind of stuff. So this is what he remembers before hypnosis. He opened the door. This was the closest thing that we could get, you know, as far as a drawing. He said, Ange, there was this bluish kind of whitish flash of light, and then he just woke up 2 hours or 3 hours later, whatever it was. It took him a year to do hypnosis. Found someone, I was so honored, he wanted me to be there with him. Well, you got to visualize this. We're in his mama's bedroom on her king-size bed. He's laying over here with a hypnotherapist, and he wants me to lay over here on this side of the bed with him because I've never left him. You know what I mean? I said, okay, I'm going to be there. So I just laid down, you know what I mean, because it was too uncomfortable to sit up. So if you ever witness one of these things, you know people, they're either great actors or actresses, or they're not making this up. I mean, he went through the whole ordeal again. So after the hypnosis began, this is the first thing that he remembered. He remembered this beam coming down in the light, and he could see something in the light, something coming, you know, over toward him. And this picture's a little disturbing, but he wanted me to put it in there because this is what he saw. And as you know, you can imagine when some of this came up, he actually came out of the hypnosis. You know, your critical mind will protect you. It's never going to take you further than you need to go. And that's what he remembered seeing. He said, Ange, it had all these wrinkles. It looked like it was really old. And he said from the memories that he could get back, he said it wasn't really mean to him. He said it was different than we are. He said it was actually trying to comfort me and say, you know, everything's going to be okay. But to watch somebody go through that and actually find that again, that didn't seem like a happy memory, like I'm going to just make that up. So that was the closest picture we could come up with. He said, Ange, I don't think I can draw that. So it's not exactly right, but he said it's pretty close. And then, we're almost finished here, but some new sightings have happened. He said, Ange, I had a feeling again to run outside with my camera, and he captured this. I have no idea what that is. It doesn't match any pattern that I know of. I ran it by all my pilots and all my things, and we're not sure, but it was pretty clear. I mean, I thought that was a pretty cool thing. This is added later. Mama woke up one night, and she said, I was in this weird state, and I want you to see all the time that people take in making drawings and, you know, trying to convey to me what happened. And she said, I went out, and I see this being helping who I think is my son back up the steps. And she goes, you know, I'm a mama. It seems like if I saw that, I would be really concerned. But I just went, oh, everything's okay. I'll just go back to bed. So she went back to bed. And she goes, why would I act like that? That's really common, you know, for people to be influenced to some degree. I've had whole families see a low-range UFO over the side of the road, and they talk about it for 2 minutes and then don't talk about it again for 7 years. But anyway, my last slide here, I like this slide. People go, I had someone call me and they said, well, UFO sightings are on the low, you know, they're not happening more. I said, what world are you in? I'm slammed. And I said, if they're not seeing UFOs anymore, this is why. Everybody's looking down and looking at their cell phones, you know, nobody ever looks up anymore. So I thought I would just put that one in. I thought that was kind of funny. So that's the end of the lecture on that part. So does anybody have any questions or anything?